Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our video tutorial about GPIOs and customer application with digital inputs and outputs. I'm Michael Kaiser, Director for Product Management at Kathrein Solutions, and I will guide you through this video. What will we see in the next 15 minutes? We will talk about general purpose input and outputs, about the GPIOs, and what kind of types, what kind of outputs we offer to you with our Kathrein readers. We will talk about the basic functions with the digital inputs and outputs and how they will be managed with our Kathrein ReaderStart software. And finally, we will have a look at a customer application and how our Kathrein Connection Box will be a benefit for you. So we at Kathrein, we have two classes of readers. We have our data versions, the RU 1400 and ARU 2400 units, the X400 readers, which have a certain type of GPIOs, and we have the other readers. Let's start with the 2400 readers and 1400 readers, and you will see that we use this digital inputs and outputs which are built in for several purposes. So for example, the external the inputs we will use for the sensors. We have external sensors where we can trigger the process. We can starting a read point. We can stop the reading, or we can do anything what is necessary for the process. In opposite, we can use external actuators to activate something external based on read result, based on read result, based on the information you will get. And what kind of types could this be? So for the external sensors, we have light barriers, we have sensors, proximity switches, we have motion detectors. And on the other side, for the actuators, we have LED displays, we have acoustic signals, and of course, we can also control the motor like a barrier or a turnstile, what is necessary to open or to follow the process. Which advantages we gave to you with the 1400 reader, with the 2400 reader? We have two digital inputs and two digital outputs with these readers. They are already built in. You can use it directly from the scratch. The function is directly buffered, directly stored in this device, so you don't need to program any additional software. You can use directly this functionality, and directly means without delay. So you can use it immediately, and this is a big advantage for you. And of course, the implementation is quite simple and quite easy. You have the inputs, you have the outputs, you have your sensors, and you can connect it directly without additional cost. For the 1400, for the 2400, we have these options. So for the inputs, we have two inputs, and you see that the ground is the same level, the same potential as the sensors. This means we have not DC isolated system. You have to be careful if it's necessary to separate them. In this case, we have it combined, and we have the external power supply for the sensors, and we can read out the inputs based on the process. You can imagine here's a light barrier, or here's a motion sensor, motion detector, and then we can get the input and say, okay, now is something started, now is something stopped. On the other side, we have the outputs, again, combined. The ground of the sensors, the ground of the reader is the same potential, it's the same level. And in this case, with the external power supply, we can control the output. We can switch an external actuator to go to high, and then the system will be able to show this change of process in the process with a light barrier, with a LED signal, or to open a barrier. How is it for the installation? I can show it in the slide. Here, this green bar, this green socket, this is the 5-pin GPIO socket. We have two inputs, we have two outputs, we have the ground, which is connected from 1 to 5, and you can screw very easily the open wire to this connector. You can remove it from the reader, you can connect the cable, the open wire, and then you can connect again to the reader. The smaller pins here is a 2-pin power supply connector in the same way to connect. With our X500 reader, the higher class reader for higher application requirements, example for outdoor use or heavy duty, where you have a lot of dust, you can use our X500 readers. And also here we have the possibility to receive external trigger signals from sensors by light barriers, motion detectors, what else. And we can send out signals to external actuators. In this case, with the X500 readers, we have 4 digital inputs and 4 digital outputs you can use. We have this function again directly stored, directly available in the reader. You don't need any additional software to program it. You can use it directly from scratch. We have 2 operating modes, DC isolated, as you have seen before, and DC connected, galvanically connected mode. And what does it mean? I will show you in the next slides. Again, a fast and simple way to connect external components without additional cost. Okay, have a look on the left. We have the digital inputs, and these inputs are for the case to control to get the signals from external triggers. Yeah, and here in this case we have the isolated inputs. This means the ground of the reader and the ground of the sensors are separated. This could be helpful because here we have only the optical coupler to detect the inputs, and the grounding from both units, from both systems, are separately. The opposite way is to have these inputs not DC isolated. In this case, we have the same level of the ground. We have the ground of the reader and the ground of the sensors in the same the direct connection. And you can use this also to supply your external sensors. You can use the internal power supply. You can feed through this GPIO cable and can give the signals to your actuators to our sensors for the external sensors and external actuators. Be careful that this mode is not possible with a PoE supply. If the reader is supplied by PoE, this power supply is not available. For the outputs, we have totally the same. On the left side, the DC isolated outputs. This means the ground of the reader and the ground of the sensors are separated. Yeah, we have only the optocouplers to activate these actuators, and that's why we have a separate system. Yeah, sensors and readers are not on the same ground level. If you want to use this not DC isolated mode, you can use the power supply. When it's feed locally, you can control the actuators 1 to 4, and we can combine it with the same ground level as the sensors. Quite easy, quite simple. With these readers, we have an outdoor use reader, IP67. This reader is able to connect this when the cable and our cables you can buy from us are doing so, IP67 approved. And with this cable, we have all these inputs and outputs connected. We have the common ground, but also have a look at pin 6 and pin 7. We have the possibility to feed through the voltage. This means the power supply of the reader, which you connect the reader through, is able to feed through this power to your sensors and to your actuators. What kind of software support we gave to you? Here you see from our ReaderStart software the possibility to control these 4 outputs. So we have the 4 outputs. We have the possibility to invert this logical output. So you have the physical output and the logical outputs, and you can invert this if it's necessary for your process. And we can select several functions. So we have the possibility to switch the output permanently off. We have the possibility to switch permanently on. We can use a frequency from 1 to 8 Hertz to blink, for example, to give an external clock to your system, and you see the external things are working in the same frequency. We have the possibility to switch on this output when RF is on. This means when a read process is starting or when a process is starting. Yeah, we can use this for the antenna errors. If the cable is broken or if the antenna is not connected, then our reader will give you an antenna error. And in this case, we can use this antenna arrow and can switch to an output. And each time you have an antenna arrow, the output goes high, and you can switch on an honk, or you can switch on a light, or what else you need to do so. In case of tag found, you can detect a tag. Each time you will find a tag, each time you will read a tag, you can switch on this output to high. And also for tag operation, if this is successful. For example, if you write something on the tag, then you will get a feedback when this writing was successful, and this operation can be connected to an output. Then each time the writing was successful, the output goes to high. This function you can combine with the antenna part. So for example, antenna error, you can address it to antenna number 1. So each time antenna number 1 has an antenna error, output number 1 goes high. Or you can combine it, as you see here. First antenna is antenna 1, last antenna is antenna 4. You address this with the antenna error, and each time any antenna error on the reader will arrive, the tag as the output 1 goes to high. In this case, you can also select and turn off time. This means an antenna error will have a duration of, let me say, 500 milliseconds. You have an antenna error, the signal goes 500 milliseconds to high, and then you will be able or prepared for the next problem, or the next antenna error will arrive. In addition, we have this very powerful function, protocol access. This means you can control this output from an external application software. So you are totally free to handle by yourself about the duration, about the use case, about the combination, and controlled by your software. Yeah, by the way, for the RU 1400, 2400, we have totally the same functionality, except you have only 2 outputs. Yeah, but for the features, for the functionality, we have totally the same. For the inputs, again, we have here the possibility to invert the logical input. You have the physical input, you have the logical input, and if it's necessary for your process, you can invert this with this software. And we have a so-called debounce timing. Debounce means that sometimes a sensor or switch is not closing properly. This means from the first trigger to the final state of the sensor, you need maybe some milliseconds. In this time, the status is undefined. It could be in between. It could bounce between high and low. And that's why you can select a time. The default value is 50 milliseconds. So you get the first trigger, and after 50 milliseconds, you check the status, and then it should arrive. If you have a switcher which takes a longer debounce time, you can enlarge this to 100 milliseconds, for example, and then you are quite sure, okay, my status is now really the real status on site. Again, for the 1400, 2400 readers, only 2 inputs are available. In addition, we have the possibility to measure this functionality. This means we can get the status of these devices. So for each reader, we can set this command get status. And in our case, you get here information, okay, input number 1 is high and output number 2 is high. And if you want to have it permanently, you can start it cyclic. So you have an ongoing process, and each time you start this, and the status will change. Output 2 goes to low again, and output 1 goes to high. You will see it immediately. You will get it back immediately. And also here for the 1400, 2400, we have only 2 inputs and 2 outputs. Okay, have a look to the customer application. You have seen these light barriers, these sensors, and these actuators could be helpful in the customer application to support your process, to get it more transparent, to get it more visible. And that's why you have the need to connect this. Yeah, of course, the reader is already prepared to connect the sensor. The light barrier sensor, for example, here directly to the reader. We have this LED signal lamp to signalize something, and of course you can solder the open wires directly. But in this case, we give you a more professional solution. This is our connection box. The connection box we have in 2 versions. We have the connection box advanced and the connection box basic. Let's start with the connection box advanced, which is a very robust and very heavy-duty device. You can use it outdoors. When you close the device, it's IP65, and then you can use for really well-defined and professional installation. Let's start with the functionality. Be careful with the AC supply and take care that only qualified and trained persons are allowed to install this on this edge, because it could be dangerous. Yeah, AC voltage is always dangerous, so be careful with this. In this case, we have an AC switch. This is a defined switch where you can switch off your complete system, either the reader, but the reader also the sensors, all the things you have connected here, you can switch off. And if you have only a cable to unplug, it's not really professional. It's not really really good to do so. In this case, you have a switch, and you have also some indicators that you see is a switch on or off, and you can see my system is running or my system is off. Here you see the DC supply. You can connect to the reader. The colors here, the blue and orange colors, is for our cabling. If you have another cable, please take care for the right colors on your side. But these are our colors from the cable you can buy from us. And here you can supply the reader directly, but you can also supply the external sensors. You can supply also several readers if necessary, whatever is needed for your process, for your project. The next you find this switch panel, this GPIO switch panel. You have seen our cable have 12 pins. With these 12 pins, you connect to this switch panel in the lower row from 1 to 12, and all the GPIOs and all the inputs and outputs are connected. And then you have three options to connect your external sensors, your external actuators, or your external devices directly with this switch panel. In a well-defined system, you can check very easily because you have the same structure for all your installation maybe, and then you can find it quite easy if you have a problem what to change that the system is running. Finally, we have the possibility to connect two RJ45 cable for the network. So we have one cable from the reader directly to this connection box, and then one cable from the connection box to your network. Then you have a separate split, so you can say, okay, here is my border. On the one side, my IT network from the customer. On the other side, my network from the reader, and that's why it's quite simple and quite helpful. Also, this cable and all the other cables you can build in this connection box in a hermetical way. This means also when you feed in the cable, when you bring in the cable, it will still be IP65, of course. Here, a short example, and you will find much more with our reader manual. Here's an example for the outputs, not AC isolated. And you see on the left side the reader, and you see the reader pins, pin 7, pin 2, pin 10. And then you see our cable, the 520 362 or 63, the 3 meter or 10 meter cable. And here in this case, the pin 7 is the black cable, the black open wire. And this you have to connect to pin number 5. And then you have the output 1, 2, 3, 4 with blue, violet, red, and gray, which you can connect to pin 1, 2, 3, 4. And then you can connect on the external side your actuators based on your needs and your application in a very well-defined format, very professional, and that's why it's very helpful for you to do so. And as I said, all is IP65, all is heavy duty, all is robust and well-defined. If you have to look for further examples for the inputs or for the other operation mode, please have a look to our reader manual. Finally, we have the connection box basic. Here we have only the power supply unit in a smaller box, but sometimes this is sufficient to do so. Then you can do an installation also outdoors, IP65, very close, very hermetical, and you don't have to care about the problems with the power supply or with longer cables, or you can do it directly. Very simple, very easy. Again, be careful with the AC supply. Only qualified and trained person are allowed to install this. We have the AC switch to switch off the system completely, with an indicator to see is the system running or not. And of course, we have the DC supply cables, which you can use to connect directly to your readers. You can connect several readers if necessary, and then you can handle this in a very professional, very clean way. Okay, this was about the customer application, how to use our Kathrein Connection Box, the benefits, and of course, how to use our GPIOs, our inputs and outputs for the customer applications. I hope you have enjoyed this tutorial, Any of your questions, please let me know. Many thanks for your time. See you soon. Bye-bye.